afternoon. Welcome to our webinar. My name is David Jeffrey. I would like to introduce Irene Tuffnell.
Hello there, and I'm Irene Tuffrey-Wijne, and we are working here at Kingston University on the Victoria and Stuart Project, which we'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment, but very welcome to this webinar by the PCPLD Network. Stuart Story is today's webinar. Do you want to say a little bit about Stuart Story?
Yes, we watched the story this morning. It was very powerful, very organised. I liked the bit where...
Don't give it away, David. Don't give it away yet. Right. So there is a lot to like. Yes. So we watched Stuart Story. Look, I've got the whole team here in the office with us. All of us we're watching this together. So Stuart Hasler was a man with a learning disability. Yeah. And our Victoria and Stuart Project is named after him. And it is around end-of-life care planning. For people with a learning disability. And the PCPLD Network, Palliative Care for People with Learning Disabilities, for many years, have given an award for people or organisations who have done an outstanding job in supporting people at the end of life. And in 2021, we gave that award to Stuart Hasler. Posthumously, he'd died, and to his team around him, because, as you say, you'll see that in the video, and we have a lot to say about this. It is an extraordinary story and an extraordinary achievement for him and for the whole team. And so we decided to name our project, which is a study into end-of-life care planning with people with learning disability, after Stuart and Victoria Wilson, whose story we brought to you in a webinar at the beginning of this research study. But we're coming towards the end, and we thought we'd now bring you Stuart's story. So this story is brought to you by the team who supported him. And that is a whole team of learning disability nurses. There's his personal assistants. You'll see there's lots of people. It's about 25 minutes long, the story that they've prepared for us, and after that we have about 10 minutes or so for you to have a Q&A, a question and answer session with some of these people who are in a room, and they'll be there live to answer your questions. So do put your questions and comments in the Q&A, and we'll pick those up, and I'll be able to put them to the team afterwards. This webinar is recorded and will be available on YouTube later on. And also, if you would like to have a certificate of attendance, you'll be able to get that from the PCPLD Network website. But shall we just go and watch that video? We've got some advice, don't we, for people to watching this. What is our advice?
I would have a cup of tea and some tissues handed by.
Okay. It's a serious bit of advice, really. We've watched this 3 times, and every single time I've needed my tissues. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. So without further ado, let us just go to Stuart's story.
Can I go home, please? Can I have a cup of tea? Oh, yes. My name is Stuart Hasler. I'm 36 years old and I live in Enfield independently, and I really enjoy it. But I'm not clean here. This is the right one. Who lives in a house like this? It might be someone nice. Look, lovely chair, big television. You don't know who it is. Don't know. Big chair, nice sofa. I could do what I want to do. Cleaning, washing. I can watch what I want. go any place I like to go to. He's been to loads of places, don't know where. Lanzarote, Warhorse, and this is his kitchen. His plates, his cups. Oh, he's an Arsenal fan. It's going to be good today, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun.
I like Camera Club, it's good. Meet people and go and take pictures and we have a nice time. David Dickinson, very nice man. I met him, Enfield town, in Dickinson's real deal. I want to go out there in this big world and go for it in the big world. I done it. I'm very proud I've done it.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. In every life we have some trouble. But when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Ain't got no place to lay your head. Somebody came and took your bed. Don't worry. Be happy. The landlord say your rent is late. He may have to litigate. Don't worry. Be happy. Look at me, I'm happy. Don't worry. Be happy. I give you my phone number. When you worry, call me. I make you happy.
I first met Stuart in 2008. He was having some issues with his placement and I was asked to help him do a person-centred plan. It quickly emerged that some things were very important to Stuart. Being in control was very important. He liked to choose what he did and when he did it. Relationships were very important to Stuart. He wanted people with the right personality and the right shared interests in his life. Courtesy was very important to Stuart. Through the plan, we eventually got Stuart a tenancy on an independent living flat and a direct payment to hire his own personal assistant. And that was quite a turning point for Stuart. He really embraced the ideas of person-centred practices and personalisation. So he attended a course and became a co-trainer on the person-centred planning course that I deliver and trained with me for many years. And he was an excellent co-trainer. He understood the material, he was always early, and often came up with very creative ways to help get the message across. And then, of course, he was coming into the office, so he met other people. And he became a peer advocate on the Challenging Behaviour Action Group at the start of our PBS programme. He would often speak at conferences on subjects that mattered to him, such as reasonable adjustments, and also help develop his social project, creating films and videos. And eventually Stuart became very well known and a very highly valued member of the service.
Yeah, I mean, I met Stuart probably not long after he started as a PCP trainer. I was working as the acute liaison nurse at Barnet and Chase Farm at the time, and Stuart was very vocal. He would often tell me about the negative experiences people had and what needed to change in order to ensure that they were able to support people properly, with reasonable adjustments, taking time to explain. And again, he was just a natural advocate for people with learning disabilities. He said it as it was. He wanted to know exactly what I was doing that was going to support making a difference, which was great. I mean, it did kind of keep you on your toes. Yes.
But they didn't always work first time.
No.
And I think that's what sort of really got him on a campaign. And I remember him doing a presentation. He went down to the then North Central London CCG.
Yes.
And he presented to a bunch of commissioners, and I think acute trusts were there, about the importance of reasonable adjustments using that experience.
But then when everybody did get on board for the following procedures, they were as successful as they could have been. And he had his interventions successfully and safely.
Yeah. And it saved his life at that stage.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I was the first community nurse to work with him, really. Chris, there was some struggles and everything. So, I came along to one of his meetings that Chris used to organise at his flat. Do you remember, Chris? Yeah. And sort of, let's see if a community nurse can start working with him, and my God, did he give me a run for my money or what? He would then reflect, and then maybe the next, so I would just ignore it, and I'd ignore the text, I'd ignore all the text, and then the following day we'd be back to normal as if nothing had happened, and then we just carry on. He knew that somehow we wouldn't give up on him, no matter what.
I was Stuart's community nurse for quite a few years, and he picked me. He was a very cheeky chap, and he used to have his little tricks, like, I'd be wearing a pair of boots and he would tell me my laces were undone, and I would every time look down on the ground, and then he would make you laugh. The other thing is that he loved football. He's Arsenal. Hey, him and Arsenal, he lived and breathed it. And when he was able to start to go to matches again, that was the time when we was able to get a lot of health-related information from him, because that's when he relaxed the most. Every time he was shouting out for the Gunners, he was feeling being a part of the football community, and he was able to say things that he felt relaxed enough and safe enough to say them.
I first started working with him in 2019. Stuart, I think he just loves working with people, and he knew it was my first journey into nursing. He was very, very keen to allow me to grow as a nurse as well. He taught me a lot of things. I should be very, very grateful, because you learn so much from each patient, from each service user, from each colleague. But the things I learned from Stuart is so important even now. I use whatever I learned with Stuart even today.
So we worked with Stuart on his health issues for a few years, and there came a point where we had really achieved what was set out in his health action plan. There were some ongoing health conditions that were quite challenging, but no more operations were on the horizon and no invasive procedures. That was a relief to Stuart and everybody, and we felt we really had achieved perhaps even more than we thought we would when we started out. But then about another 18 months later, Stuart attends an end-of-life care planning workshop. And he had clearly thought about what he wanted at his end of life. And it was very much about quality of life. He didn't want any more operations. He didn't want to spend time in hospital. He wanted to be home with his cat, doing what he wanted to do and seeing who he wanted to see. He specifically mentioned having a party, raising money for charity, and keeping his independence as really important to him. He'd thought about his funeral, what he wanted it to be like, and he chose the music and explicitly said he wanted white horses for the carriage. He wanted a dedicated bench outside our offices. Then, about 18 months later, Stuart did present with more very serious health conditions. So we dug out the plan and we put it into action.
What Sandra did with that fundraising, at the end, for his funeral plans and all that, I thought that was amazing. And he was just so overwhelmed at he couldn't believe how many people were donating and that people really cared. And what I found amazing was the bank, the bank that he used to go to. They all got together and collected for him, and it was just amazing, how many people really loved him.
But really, I was just a storyteller. It was all of the people that knew Stuart, because he had been known around the town on his buggy. He was well known in the council. He was well known with the market stall holders and the shopkeepers. And it was because of everybody sharing the link and everybody actually sharing that literally we went from zero, I think, on day one. I think we got about £3,000 by day two. And I think within like 7 or 8 days, we'd reached £11,000. So much so, we raised so much money that GoFundMe actually contacted me to make sure that we were legitimate because of the pace that we were actually raising money. And I had to extend his story to make sure that they didn't cut off the page, because they were like, who is this guy getting all this money in? And Stuart was so excited by it. His GoFundMe page really talked about the fact that Stuart needed extra help with funding for his funeral. And I was just a storyteller. I tried to word it in such a way that was sensitive, but so that people could really understand what it meant. And Stuart read that page 1,000 times. Who wants to focus on dying for 6 weeks every day? So what he did was he made sure that he focused on building his friendships, focused on developing those strong relationships with his family, focused on spending time with his niece, and really focused on enjoying what he had left of his life, and didn't waste a single minute. And even though I think we only knew him for something like 9 or 10 weeks, I feel like I knew him for 2 or 3 years.
Stuart was not one to share any part of his body with anybody that didn't need to see it for an emergency reason. And so check-in pressure areas did become a problem, both in the hospital and in the community. So it was good to share that kind of across the whole of the MDT and understand that that's how partnership working is as well. And that's Stuart brought that out and brought the best out in all of the professional groups, because they weren't working in isolation. They were working as a collective group to deliver that quality of care.
So I think in the last few weeks at home, we had parties every single day. We had the parties for people leaving, retiring. For obviously we had Christmas party, earlier Christmas party. We did exactly. I mean, we were having meetings just to think about new ideas for new parties, because we'd set the standard, and now there was an expectation from Stuart that all our parties were as good as the last party. So we were having to go like bigger and bigger every time we were organising a party. I think Christmas was the biggest, when we invited a singer that was outside of his window. Yeah. COVID, wasn't it? Yes. And all his friends were on Zoom Christmas carols. Yes, that was amazing. Christmas carols. All the family managed to arrive, and he was very happy collecting all the presents, ordering them from Amazon, in order to give to all of his family, especially the young children. I remember the community nursing team and the professionals that worked with him clubbed together and bought him a heated foot cosy thing where you can put your feet in, and it would warm his feet, because obviously his circulation was a real problem. I think his feet were like a size 17. He was so happy when he got it, and we were like so thrilled. We were like, fantastic idea. Now we've got something that's going to warm his feet up, help to promote and improve his circulation. And it was a fantastic thing, you know, and these are like the little thoughtful actions that were taken above and beyond that Stuart really appreciated as well. He had 20-something professionals involved in his care, and everybody wanted to meet with him every week, and Stuart was not going to let that happen. He wanted his final days to be spent enjoying himself, not seeing one professional after another. So Stuart said, actually, do you know what, I'll decide who's coming and when I see them. So we had to figure out a different way of communicating with each other. And that was a really positive experience. And I think that's probably the first time ever that I've ever seen someone actually take control of that in a very positive way and say, I'm more than happy to have conversations with you, but on my terms. It wasn't about us ticking our boxes at all. It was about what Stuart needed and when he needed it. And that was a really humbling and positive experience to be a part of.
26 different professionals were involved from 15 disciplines. Together, we made it easy.
The lead physician for learning disabilities was instrumental in Stuart being discharged. She understood he hated being in hospital and involved the right people to get him home.
We had a multi-professional group email and WhatsApp group for 24-hour support.
Stuart's flat needed complete redecoration to get him home safely. We arranged fast-track funding and had this done within a week.
Stuart's carers were trained in person-centred care, so they knew each other well and helped him update his own PCP.
Even in the pandemic, Stuart was able to spend time with his family every day, either through COVID-secure visits or online.
Whenever the nurses visited Stuart, they always made sure we were okay. They even called on their day off sometimes.
His team made sure that Stuart was always in control. His visits from professionals were spaced out so that he didn't feel overwhelmed. He decided who should visit and when.
Stuart has been planning his end-of-life care for 2 years. He even told us the horses had to be white, not black. We made sure every detail of his plan was followed.
He still had a blooming good time. He still made absolutely the most of every single day. And if he can do that, then my bad day is nothing. And I can only hope that really, you know, when it faces us all, that, you know, we all can face our own end of life with the same, you know, joy and peacefulness and fun and just life and everything that he embraced it with. And given his history of having so many challenges and challenging behaviour, the fact that he was able to do that is just amazing, isn't it?
Hi Stuart, it's Alex Lacazette. I heard you are a big Arsenal fan. So just want to tell you thank you, keep fighting, stay strong, and thank you for all the support you give it to us. We are all behind you.
Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitch by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true, saying, this is my message to you. Really don't worry about a thing. Worry about a thing, oh, every little thing gonna be alright. Don't worry, singing don't worry about a thing. I won't worry, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. I won't worry, don't worry
know all of you, and thank you very, very much. Oh, you know, people help me. I didn't deserve this, and I help people because I care, and it's a blessing to know you all, and it's just a dream to do something I'd like to do before I die. As friends, not care no more. Just a friend. You're my best friend. In a million years. Thank you, right? You look after yourself, or your family, and look after you. Do not forget about me and me and you. You will love you lot. Always don't forget me. Thank you very much. Thank you as everyone does for me. All blessings. Enjoy your life.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright.
Right. How about that, David?
Yeah, it's a very moving and very clear video of what Stuart actually wanted. The support he had was out of this world, and I think also, yeah, his own mind, even at the last few weeks or whatever it was, he still was, you know, focused on what he wanted, and you know, he's had a wonderful life, you know, even with a disability. So
Yeah, and what a legacy, eh? Because we were
Yeah.
saying, we were sitting in the office this morning, all of us, you know, had our hankies really, because it's you know, we've been thinking about getting end of life care right for people with a learning disability. You're a man with a learning disability.
Yeah.
We have a number of people in the team with learning disabilities, but also, as you're saying, all the other people involved. You know,
Yeah.
how much it takes to get all that right, and what a legacy, you know, just not for him, for Stuart, and quite rightly, you know, really recognising that, but also all the team around. And this is the first time in a webinar that we have hardly any comments coming in, and I think that is because it's so powerful. You know, it touches all of us in a very in very many profound ways. You know,
Yeah.
saying how important this is to remember everybody's story. Yeah, and so thank you to Stuart and to the team. I'm just going to go over to the team, and I want to ask you a question. So in the room in Enfield, we've got Chris, some of the people you'll recognise from the video. So we've got Chris O'Donnell, Sarah Pope from the Learning Disability Service there. We've got a couple of Stuart's PAs, personal assistants. We've got Aneta, Karnas and Rob Mannering. And we've got also Sandra Pierce from the service, and possibly also some other people. So let me go over to you there, and thank you so much for doing this story. And my question, there's one sort of question that has come in, which is something about the importance of relationships between people with learning disabilities, and not just the people to support them, but also all the healthcare professionals. So I'm wondering whether there is something you can say about the kind of relationships that the healthcare professionals had with Stuart, whether that was different from, you know, or unique, and really how important that was, and what is there something you want to say about relationships? My question.
Okay, good. I'll pick a couple of points out in there. In that, you know, you're having health conversations with someone. You know, these are
quite difficult conversations sometimes. And when you have some extra needs that Stuart did have in terms of managing anxiety, it's really important to have that sort of trust and faith. And he did choose people. A great example I will pull out. You may have saw Charlotte there referring to the football. But it was clear from that they used to go on a Saturday. And they go. She went because she wanted to go. They're both Arsenal fans. They both got tickets. Actually, she got discounts because of his being a part of the supporters club. But often, incidentally, he's having those conversations on the way home, because now I can talk to you. Where if you call me into an office, make me wait 20 minutes, and then bring me in, and you've lost the opportunity. So it's a specific thing with Charlotte, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to transfer more widely. But there's something about building the trust in someone. And with Stuart's case, yeah, I mean, often it's having some simple, reasonable adjustments, which we alluded to. I won't necessarily go into detail there, but you get it right first time. Okay, I can trust you now. The second time, I'm more likely to have the conversation and engage.
And if you felt that you were accepting him, that's the thing. Like, you weren't trying to create something that he had to fit into, but you were trying to create something that was driven and designed by him, and that you accepted him, then he was more willing to accept you, I think.
Yeah.
And I think as learning disability professionals, we have an absolute unique and valuable relationship with our clients. We're probably the only profession that can work with someone from when they're 18 or even younger, if they're going through transition, right to the day that they pass away. And I don't think that there is any other branch of healthcare that is able to say that. And because of that, we can build relationships with people that are trusting, that they stand the test of time, and they go through the person's experiences and challenges in a unique way. And we're really lucky and privileged to be in this position. And what it does for our client group is it enables them to develop relationships with us and understand who we trust as well, so that they can have confidence in other professionals working within their care. And they know that we're on their side, we're fighting their corner, and we won't allow for something to be done to somebody without them being engaged in what is happening. And we will make sure that we stand up for their rights, for reasonable adjustments, for being included in decision making. And for Stuart, that was something that was so important to him, that he had his rights at the centre of everything that everybody did. So for me, I think, we're really privileged to have been involved in this and in the clients that we still are working with.
So thank you. So can I just, because building on that, I was really struck by the extent to which Stuart really needed to feel comfortable and safe before he could really share, whether that was, the football ground is such a wonderful example of, of how you get healthcare information. And it brought home to me that professionals really have to work together, because you never know who is going to be in the team, the person who is going to get the information that you might need. And just the fact that you have 20 people who want to see you every week, I was working it out, it's 4 visits of a healthcare professional a day if everybody gets their say. And that clearly is too much for somebody who was terminally ill and at its final days you don't have the energy. So it meant that you really, it sounds like, needed to share your jobs. Who is going to be the person who can check the pressure areas, because he won't let everybody do it. So I wonder whether you can say something about that partnership working, which clearly worked so well in your team, the group, WhatsApp group, the working together, how much you've learned from Stuart how to do that, and whether you are now doing that for other people as well, whether that is something that is, that is sustainable for everybody, or is something about that, really what you've learned about that partnership working that is necessary to make this work.
Thank you. Yes, there was hopefully you can hear me okay. There was a whole team of people, as you rightly say, involved in Stuart's circle of support. And what was also unique about this period of time was that it was also during COVID.
where everybody's office was closed, community services were, you know, to a minimum. There were a lot of restrictions in place at the time as well. We were all trying to navigate Teams and new ways of communicating and having meetings and so on. And people were having to have meetings outside of his window, not coming into his flat, because we didn't want to introduce new problems to him at this time. So we set up a WhatsApp group, which I think is probably quite unique, to have so many professionals on one WhatsApp group specifically for one client. We had an email thread which had every professional in the group on that thread, and all discussions were responded to on that one thread. So we had a full conversation just on the one thread. And we had the WhatsApp group that everyone was involved in for literally lifetime communication. So if I had a conversation with Sarah maybe about him needing more dressings for something that we couldn't get hold of, then someone else from the team, maybe the palliative nurse, would say, well, actually, I'm round that way this afternoon, I'll drop some off. So, you know, people were able to support the roles of each other. We weren't just working. So it wasn't just that community nursing were working on their bit and palliative care were working on their bit. It was that everybody was actually able to support each other's roles so that we could all come together to provide a timely response. And that, you know, 30 years in care, I'd never experienced that before. And I'm not quite sure I'll ever experience it again to the same degree, but it just really, really worked. We all felt informed. We had regular MDTs, didn't we? We met having Teams meetings. We had MDTs with Stuart. So there were meetings that Stuart would say, yes, I want to do that meeting, or no, I don't. He really didn't like the idea of the palliative care nurse coming. He knew what a palliative care nurse was, and he really didn't want her in the flat. But he would allow us to talk to her in the corridor outside of his flat. So she would still come and have her visit, and she would let us know when she was outside. And then we would always say to Stuart, your nurse is outside. Are you okay if I nip outside and just have a quick chat and tell her how well you're doing? And he would say that was okay. He would say, do you want to come in and say a quick hello? And a couple of times he said yes, and a couple of times he said no. So he very much was in control of what happened and when. And if he asked to see somebody or speak to someone and he wasn't due to, we would use the WhatsApp chat to say, you know, he's asking for you. Is there any chance you could jump online or have a quick call? He had most people's numbers in his phone. He would ring them when he wanted to as well. So it was just an amazing way of communicating. And, you know, as a care manager at the time, it just made our job so much easier. You know, as carers, one of the biggest challenges we have is how you bring together all the different disciplines for the care of your client. And so for us, it just made the whole process so much easier and created so much more opportunity for us to spend our time focusing on Stuart, not focusing on all the disciplines and all the organising and the planning and the communication. It just worked wonderfully well for him, and I think made a big difference to everybody involved and our experience of being able to deliver a holistic, joined-up approach to his care. And bearing in mind his family were also a part of that communication plan as well. We would have regular discussions and WhatsApps and video conferences with family as well, so that they were also fully informed and up to date to everything that was happening with Stuart's consent. So it was a wonderful to be experienced, to be a part of it, to be honest with you. I'd never experienced anything like it before.
And I think for me is
Sorry. I was just going to ask just one quick question. Was there red tape to be cut there? Because Jane is wondering in the Q&A. You know, you're clearly all very wonderful, compassionate people who can, you know, think about sort of ways around things. But sometimes structures and policies get in the way. I just wonder whether there's any, how you cope with the red tape. Whether there was
we were probably quite lucky, because during COVID, I don't think anyone had a proper structure or policy. Maybe now things might be slightly different, but you know, we're all using work phones. We all communicate professionally on our work phones. We all communicate with our clients on our work phones. So creating one group in which we could all do it together really wasn't acting outside of anything that wasn't happening already, just perhaps not quite on the scale that it was. And again, email trails, you know, we're all involved in email trails. I think it was just a much more organised approach to communication at what was a particularly difficult time anyway. and to be able to support Stuart in the best way that we could. But I think, you know, I can honestly say in a time like that, it's one of those situations where you have to ask yourself, what makes sense here? You know, with the best policies in the world, it's about best interest. It's about what makes sense. And if no harm is going to come from it, then really what are our reasons for not doing it? And in somebody's end of life, you've really got to have a good reason to say why you're not going to do something that makes sense and makes their life just that little bit easier. And by doing what we did meant that Stuart's days were free for his family. They were free for him to spend time with his friends. He wasn't a medical case in those last few weeks. He was a person enjoying his time with his friends and family and loved ones. And, you know, I think that's as much as any of us could wish for. And by communicating in that way, it enabled him to do that. And so I don't think any of us would worry now about policies or procedures or...
But also we were in COVID, so innovative ways of working and practice, and it was kind of really great to be part of, because we were part of developing those systems to ensure that there weren't any barriers to communication, and if they were barriers there through information governance or data protection or GDPR, whatever it was, that we worked with the relevant teams to be able to say, is this okay? What do we need to do? And there weren't the same kind of, I suppose, negative approaches to sharing information. It was very much looking at this as an innovative opportunity, not only to supporting and delivering the care, but the leading the case as well. So the compassionate approach from the senior professionals that were in charge of the care and the delivery of care took that absolutely to the centre.
And about supporting
Thank
each
you
other
very much.
as well. I was
I'm
just
going to
say
have
it's also about supporting each other professionally, because, you know, Stuart did have behaviours that challenged. He did have very fixed ideas about what he wanted and didn't want. And some people in the group knew him well and some people didn't really know him very well. So it was about also drawing on our experience and the support that we could provide for each other to be able to help guide us and support us through that times, because there were times it was very difficult with Stuart, times when, you know, we didn't know how we were going to be able to provide that basic level of care for him. And so even just in terms of being able to talk with each other made a massive difference to how we felt about supporting him through.
Thank you so much. I think I could see we could really have long conversations, lots of comments now coming into the Q&A, but I'm afraid really that's all we have time for. And it's all of us wanting to know more, isn't it? Wanting to talk more. We've learned so much from all of you. And I really want to say a huge thank you to all the people who've been involved. Do you understand? And actually, before we say a final thank you, I want to just say something more about the PCPLD Network, who've given this award to Stuart and who's supporting our Victoria and Stuart project, which is around end-of-life care planning. There's going to be a final webinar about the toolkit, of which is part of Stuart's legacy, in July. So keep an eye on the information about that. But before we finish, I just wanted to hand over to Sue Marsden, who is the chair of the PCPLD Network, who's just got a couple of words to say.
Hi. My name's Sue Marsden, and I'm the chair of the PCPLD Network, and we've been hosting the webinars for the fantastic Victoria and Stuart Project. Following the presentation of Stuart's story, I'd like to put out a plea. The PCPLD is a small national charity run by volunteers who mostly work in learning disabilities or palliative care. We run a website full of resources, documents, webinar links, all aimed at promoting excellence in palliative and end-of-life care for people with learning disabilities. We aim to run a conference biannually to share good practice, innovation, and award the Linda McEnhill Awards for excellence in palliative and end-of-life care. You may have noticed that there was both a free and paid option for this webinar. Those paid tickets and our conference are our only income at present. And right now, we cannot afford to underwrite the cost of a conference for this year. My plea to you today is that if you have visited our website, viewed our resources, attended one of our webinars, or if you're a signed up member of the PCPLD, that you visit our website and consider making a one-off or a regular small donation to the charity. And this will help us keep going. We're all really passionate about learning disabilities and end-of-life care. Please help us by making a donation today.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see you again. And sorry to have to cut off this wonderful conversation with the team, with Stuart's team. But keep thinking, keep learning, and thank you to everybody who's been involved. And we'll see you at our next webinar. Bye.
Bye.